All right, everyone, it's time to issue a modest suggestion, one that is echoed by an increasing number of voters, I think, at this point. It's time to impeach Joe Biden. He can't be removed from office. You don't have the votes in the Senate required to do that. Remember that impeachment is basically the House has decided that it thinks that you're guilty of something. Trump got impeached twice. Clinton was impeached, etc., etc. There have been quite a few impeachments. The thing is that none of them have ever led to a successful prosecution. The one case in which you probably had the votes towards the end to do that was, of course, with Nixon after Watergate, and he chose to resign. Joe Biden has done far worse in multiple ways. The latest weaponized DOJ indictment of Donald Trump, which is carried on after a raid that was involved with agents that often overlapped with the Russiagate hoax, by the way. That, by the way, is not reported widely in the legacy media. Some of the same agents were involved in both cases. I'm supposed to believe that the original case in which propaganda was used to proclaim that state propaganda was responsible for what was going on, and that was knowingly false. The FBI knew that. I'm supposed to believe, number one, there was no systemic wider pattern within that bureau or any of these others that are involved at this point of bias. There was no wrongdoing. It was just rogue agents. And that's all. And Durham's findings basically boil down to a handful of rogue agents doing wrong. We're sorry, everybody. Well, that's not really what was found, but that is the summation you'll get from the legacy media. Despite the overlap and connection between that and what's currently going on with the DOJ's indictment, I'm supposed to believe that the DOJ would not make a mistake like that. No wrongdoing, no bias, etc. But I don't believe that. When I look at the now revealed super scandal with Joe Biden and his dealings through Hunter, we've already suspected that there were dirty business dealings anyway. If you look through the laptop, again, another element of the FBI explicitly covering up reality for people during an election. During 2020, they claimed that that was basically, it was a hoax, that the Hunter Biden laptop didn't exist, and if it did, there's nothing on it worth looking into. Legacy media and big tech helped cover it up. You had open collusion between the Biden campaign and now the Biden stewardship in the White House and these groups, and the legacy media, of course, promoting propaganda, lying knowingly to the American people. Further, Joe Biden is demented. So you have numerous political hatchet jobs and scandals. You have a lackluster economy. I mean, you can't impeach a person just for being bad at economics. If you did, pretty much every president other than Trump recently would have been impeached, and Trump would have been hazarded at the end of his presidency too with his COVID bailout, by the way, in full acknowledgement. So you've got a demented man. He doesn't appear to be calling the shots anyway. He's sort of like Woodrow Wilson after his stroke. It's not clear that he makes his decisions. He wandered off stage again yesterday. So, I mean, I don't know how many incidents that is. You've got, actually, and I was wrong actually before when I was talking about his latest fall, you know, where he got sandbagged. I thought it was 7 that he was at. It's actually 8 or 9 because there were a couple of close ones overseas, actually. I wasn't counting those. So a man that is not all with it. He frequently is lost, frequently begins to mumble and go off the rails and doesn't appear to know what he's talking about, forgets people's names, forgets why he's somewhere, forgets where he is falling down all the time, has had multiple health issues, shouldn't be serving anyway. That alone is disqualifying. Even if you like Joe Biden, just because you like someone doesn't mean you want him in an employment position. Like, I might like Joe the worker, but Joe the worker is supposed to do a lot of typing, and now he has carpal tunnel and he really can't, and I don't really have time because his job is important. I don't have time to have him learn how to type with his toes. Joe, you're on furlough. You can't do the job that I need you to do. Joe Biden is much the same. Of course, I don't like Joe Biden, but even if I did, I'd be looking at the situation saying, you know, is he even going to survive if he gets a second term? Like, there's a 50-50 shot that he even doesn't die in office. I suppose that leaves you with President Kamala. Dear liberals, do you really want that? I mean, you're handing the Republicans 2028. The first female president won't have been elected. That's a blot on your party as well, by the way. And she's not very good at governing. Even most liberals don't like her. She's got lower approval than Joe Biden does. And her communication skills arguably are worse somehow. But now Joe Biden has begun doing what Obama did, and to be clear, many Republican administrations have done as well. Trump uniquely hadn't been able to do this because he didn't get any cooperation, only sabotage from members of his own administration for the most part. Look at what the House Republicans did with wall funding, dragging that out for 3 fucking years. Joe Biden is weaponizing bureaus. He's trying to expand the IRS so that it can go full Lois Lerner again, by the way. I see right through that. It's not about repatriating money from the rich donor classers that donate to people like Joe Biden. They are not going to bite the hand that feeds them. It wouldn't make any sense. Historically, it would be abnormal for a sitting political body to do something like that, even in a system that's supposedly first world developed and fair, which we're quickly getting away from, but I digress. If you have someone who is incompetent in the mental sense, physically frail and could keel at any moment, by the way, and is constantly making errors, getting shot down by the courts for unconstitutional attempts, for instance, the race-based farm and restaurant aid attempt that he made at the dawn of his presidency, among other things, the mandate for federal workers a la vaccination, that was shot down, the OSHA mandate. It's over and over again. Breaches of the Constitution, moments of ineptitude, moments of lack of mental clarity, and now the weaponization of the government on a level even beyond the way in which it was being weaponized before. All of these things combined bring about, in my mind, a necessity of impeachment. I've called for his impeachment before based on some of the things that he was doing anyway and his mental incapacity, and to be clear, it is effectively just a statement of we don't like you, Joe. It's basically the House's way of giving a strongly worded letter and making it extra strongly worded. But it's still worth doing so to have it on paper. Joe Biden has been impeached. Here are the various reasons why. We suspect he's not mentally competent to handle his job. We suspect the 25th Amendment should be invoked and him simply removed from office entirely due to incapacity. We have seen numerous examples of him violate the Constitution. This has been found over and over in the courts. He is weaponizing bureaus, and to the liberals out there coping by saying, well, the DOJ is independent, and Jack Murphy was also independently appointed. That's not how the legal system works, and under normal circumstances, liberals acknowledge this. They know it's true. For the purposes of Orange Man Bad, they're not willing to acknowledge it. You know as well as I do, there's hardly a fool out there who doesn't understand that federal bureaus are filthy. They're all scandalous. They're doing coke together and shit like that, running guns to cartels. The FBI explicitly involved with that under Fast and Furious. Yes, of course, they're squeaky clean, and the DOJ never influences the investigators that it works with, who rely upon them for such jobs. They have no influence at all. And Biden doesn't influence the DOJ, whose officials he oversees in the executive capacity. He's incapable of informally encouraging them to do anything. It's also impossible that they want to do what he wants them to do, like nail one of his political dissident opponents because they don't think he can beat him, to knock him out of the way because Biden would be pleased. And if Biden is pleased, you get a bigger budget. Goodies are handed out. Maybe you get Dunkin' Donuts delivered tomorrow. This is the way the nepotism and incest with which government works, with which the legal system works. Everyone knows it. They just will or will not acknowledge it, depending on who it's being aimed at the time. White nationalists don't like the feds any more than black nationalists do, but when it's a black man getting crack planted on him and kicked in the head a couple times, that you notice that they're not as vocal about the legal system as when the trailer full of meth is raided, with the skinheads in it. You'll notice there's a differential when people analyze such things. It's time to impeach Joe Biden. Now we see if the House Republicans are ballsy enough to do it. I mean, they're crazy not to. You've got the votes. You've got multiple reasons why. It will help to denigrate Joe Biden's credibility among independent voters. What the hell are you waiting for? The only reason that they wouldn't at this point impeach, because it's so cut and dry that they can, and that they can make their case to the American people, and they can do it speedily so they don't look like they're wasting time, like, the Democrats' impeachments dragged on for a while. The only reason, and this is a prediction, that they would not do so, that McCarthy would not bring forth articles of impeachment, it's not because they don't think it'd pass, but they think it would, and it would help Trump. Because they're not fully, the uniparty Republicans like Kevin McCarthy, they're not fully sure that Donald will be in a prison cell and therefore lose. In their minds, that's plausible. They're not 100% confident of that, so they're not going to impeach Biden. They would rather help him get reelected because he's a unipartyist and because they agree with him. That's about all. Peace out.